Welcome to the MTT News of the Week special on the Ukraine conflict. We are doing a special, so welcome, Jen. Good to have you again.
Yeah, great to be here.
Right, yes. So if you are listening and watching, we are doing a special on the Ukraine situation. As I'm sure you're aware, last Friday we had episode dedicated to the conflict in Ukraine. Because of the size of the conflict and the importance of the conflict, we're going to give a quick update. We also didn't have enough time on Friday to cover everything, so we felt like we should dedicate some more time to it and give you an update on what's happened over the weekend of the last
For sure.
3 or 4 days. So, well, first thing we'll mention is that in the last hour, it's been reported that there will be a meeting of representatives between the Ukrainians, Russians, and the Belarusians, perhaps the beginnings of negotiations. However, nothing concrete has come out of it yet, just the announcement that they are trying to organize some sort of meeting with representatives. So we could say perhaps negotiations are beginning, but that is very, very tentative. It's only an announcement at the moment, and nothing has come of it yet. We will now go through and take a look at the map of the conflict, and just to give you an update of what the current situation is on the ground. One of the reasons that we also wanted to do this stream was because we realized that our coverage, at least in our opinion, was at least a bit better, maybe a lot better than some of the coverage on the mainstream. So whether it's Sky News or Al Jazeera or CGTN or Russia Today, all of them
quite so, because all information that's coming out is either disinformation or so fragmented. So sitting in front of a big lit up screen with a pointy stick to say, oh, fighting happened here, fighting happened there.
Yes.
Doesn't really do much. What you need is a narrative, a geopolitical narrative, historical narrative, and a military narrative. Without narrative, us humans really don't make sense of things.
Right.
Just in general. And this is a great showcase of that, in my opinion.
And the other thing is, of course, that, as you just said, Jen, the person standing in front of a big map going, there was some general fighting here and there were clashes here. The other thing that I really want to stress here is that they actually are sanitizing how horrific conflict and war is. Because if you just go, there was clash here between the army and they moved and they moved back. You're not sort of detailing the absolute carnage. I mean, the noise, the fire, the destruction of trees and earth and people and animals and buildings. And we're not going to show you footage of casualties. If we do, sorry, that will be by accident. We'll try not to show that. But there is lots of footage of completely burnt bodies, young men killed, destroyed, ripped to pieces. So it's brutal stuff. And when you describe it as just as clashes and don't give it that sort of context, you can also almost, this is also the other thing that's happening, is that people, or particularly Western media, is almost egging on this conflict in a way by showing, oh look, the resistance, they're arming the people, they're giving them Molotovs, they're fighting for their country. And I understand, sure, fighting for your country and patriotism, and of course I understand that, but also I don't think any of the news editors and journalists that are reporting like that would be comfortable if they were shown that what they said inspired a 21-year-old to go and pick up an old AK-47 and go and
consequences. They like to say this about non-liberals, and I'm not trying to whitewash any right-wing figures, but so too does their speech also have consequences on people, especially in a situation like this.
Yeah. So this is one more caveat we'll put here, is that a lot of what we're going to talk about is how there is a massive information war taking place.
Yes.
And there is also there's definitely a Russian side to it as well. There is information wars going on. So stuff that's being reported, how it's being reported, things that did happen, things that didn't happen. There's a whole bunch.
I would say that from what I've seen, though, from just trying to make sense of the situation, the Ukrainian side is definitely pulling some end of World War II Nazi Germany level of propaganda that is pretty over the top.
Right.
Like it's completely unhelpful. It, like you said, it's just like the Western media, right? This kind of narrative is driving, Ukrainian citizens, nationals who like doesn't know much better to like fool them into the front lines. Sure. I mean, of course, that's like beneficial for the ruling class and all that, but like, come on, that is insane.
Yeah, no, it is wild. It's wild. It's wild. I think one more thing before we go into the map is that in this conflict and the build-up to this conflict, and this is something I forgot to mention on Friday, is it's real. It's really it's great to see. Not great to see. It's a great test of where you can see which voices do matter and which voices don't matter, depending on which side you're on. So if you're on the Western side, the people of LPR and DPR are not a real country. Their voices don't matter. The casualties that they experience, the shelling of their schools and nurseries, whatever, don't matter. And the ones.
One important thing that Western media doesn't mention, which is there has been a mass grave of the young and old women alike from age 15 all the way to the 60 plus. Discovered that is belonging to the deceased bodies belong to LPR and DPR citizens, or just people, I guess, if you want to, if you don't want to recognize them,
civilians,
at the hands of the Ukrainians. That was like 8 days before the conflict started. You can see some New York Times articles basically saying, "Oh, Russia is going to use this as an excuse to start the war." Well, then, like, excuse me, don't do that.
Sure.
Like, I know, like, what I like, how I like, even I, in my attempt to like try and not traumatize people is whitewashing the kind of cruelty of this. But then, like, that's the paradox of media and shows. Like, what can you do, really?
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the map. Let's get into this. So here's our map here of the area. 1 second. So we're going to start from the south and move ourselves north as we go along. So what you're looking at here is obviously a big picture of Ukraine as a whole. So if you're looking down here, this big red section is Crimea. So obviously this map website is obviously counting that is already invaded. So let's try and it's not. That's already a part of Russia. That's 8 years. That's already dealt with. So moving north, this is the actual incursion here. This is the actual movement of forces from the Russian side into Ukraine proper. So this big sort of, I guess, duck-shaped thing is there where they've taken territory from the current Ukrainian regime. So there wasn't any, as we reported on Friday, there was nothing that happened in Odessa. So the left here, there was Western media reports of a beach landing. There wasn't. There was an airstrike on an air base built by the UK, if I'm not mistaken, near Odessa. So there have been airstrikes and air. So what's called the command and control system, the air system, that was attacked across the country, including places in Odessa. So cruise missiles, airstrikes, and these kinds of things.
Rocket artillery, right?
I don't think Odessa would have had Grad or any rocket. Maybe only cruise.
Oh, maybe the longer range ones.
Maybe.
Smerch systems are definitely up there, right?
Really?
But what I want to mention is that from now, what we can gather now with the Odessa situation, what it actually was the pro-Russian forces in that strip of red land, Moldova, the region that had a civil war back in the 2000s. Where the pro-European and the pro-Russian factions duked it out in the very narrow strip of land. Ever since then, they have been building up they have been building up to the strength of essentially an army group, but in this narrow strip of land all by themselves, recruiting from local.
I think this not also Transnistria? Sorry, this is Transnistria, isn't it?
Yes. So that's basically their forces after seeing this this whole entire event decided that it was a good, at least a tactical opportunity to use the NATO term push to contact, push as
Right.
far as until they see some like Ukrainian
Yes.
forces.
Yes.
But then they realized that there was no Ukrainian forces guarding it. There was nothing.
Right.
And
Right.
so they just kept pushing further and further, and now there is like because people are confused,
Right.
people don't have access to GPS, satellite imaging. They just see like, oh, pro-Russian forces in Odessa, the Russian naval landing in Odessa. So that's where that came from.
I think we should mention here then, Jen, is down here. This is Snake Island. So
Yeah.
there's a bit of a story here we should mention. So Snake Island, just perspective, is down south here. It's close to Romania, actually. Yeah, so there's the border. This is the tiny little island here. So it's a Ukrainian island. And apparently, so this is where we're seeing probably the biggest example of information war or sort of contradictions, right? So a big story in the Western media, sorry, was this. I think 13 was the number that I was initially told. 13 guys, Ukrainian Coast Guard / border guard on this island, and a Russian naval vessel turns up. And they've played
surrender or else.
They've played this recording.
And then, they responded, "Go f yourself."
Right, there's the story. So exactly, the ship says, Ukrainian border guard, lay down your arms, or I will hit you. And he replies, "Fuck off." And so now people are going like, yeah, like let's use that as a story to rile up the national spirit of Ukraine. But then, following that,
and in reality, they are actually alive. They surrendered, all 78 of them. They were captured alive. They were treated well, and they even saw themselves being announced dead on Ukrainian radio and TV.
Right.
Well, they're not dead.
Right.
And they were from what I've seen on footage, like the people that were absolutely heartbroken. Like, what do you mean I'm dead? Like, how could they just so like willy-nilly like announce that like you're dead? Like, what does that even mean? But then, of course, the footage is like deleted from Western internet.
So yeah,
I dug it up from the Chinese internet. So
I think we'll have to. I'm curious to see like a month from now or whatever. What?
Russian necromancy.
Russian. What's necromancy?
I don't know. The company traveling priest. Orthodox Christian priest is capable of resurrecting people from the dead, I guess.
We'll see. I mean, I don't want to confidently say that hasn't happened. I mean, it does. I've seen the footage too of the guys in the bus and them being interviewed and stuff. But there's also like loads of images.
Okay, Richard, just to make sure, I want you to make sure. Like, I want to make sure you're not saying that like Russians are not capable of necromancy. Like that's
no, they're definitely not capable of necromancy.
Okay.
But I do want to say that I at the start of this we know that there's information war going on right now. So I don't want to say that the Russians are not doing it either. The Russians are definitely taking information. It's in their interests to be doing information operation because there's a narrative, like you said, there's a big narrative going on right now. If you get and inspire Ukrainian guys to be like, oh yeah, I want to be like the guys on Snake Island, like they gave their lives for the country, I should do the same thing. That's a very big part of why we have stories like this. And then if you are Russian, you want to counter that. So I'm not saying that it didn't happen or did happen. I'm just saying that right now.
Right, but then let's bring in another news. Ukraine, during its desperation, started handing out 30,000 plus.
Wait. Let's get to that later. That I think that there's a specific city we can focus on that for that one. You're talking about the arms, right?
Yeah, both in Karkov and Kiev.
Whoa. Let's talk about it when we get to Karkov and Kiev because we're down south now. Right. We're going through the map. We're going through this geographically. We don't want to confuse people with, talking about what's happening in other places. Right. Let's focus on the south now. So we've now covered that basic piece there. So let's go up to here where the push then moves right. So yeah, to the left-hand side of the country, basically, you have sporadic airstrikes and, as Jen said, some sort of incursion by maybe the Transnistrian sort of Russian inspired units. But it's not the focus of the fighting at all. The entire west of the country is pretty much airstrikes here and there, but nothing else is going on. So the focus is now mainly on the east and the south, at least for our discussion. So in the south, this is the push that then it's taken obviously these little towns Melitopol. I believe this is Melitopol, where they raised the flag over the police station. The Russian flag has been raised here. I don't think it's a particularly important city. I mean, it is a city.
It
has an
does get
airport.
more important when we get a little bit further eastward.
Right. I think that's it. Right. So it's an important push for their main point of interest, which is obviously
the pincer maneuver on Mariupol defense line.
Right. Exactly. So from a military perspective, we can see now what's going on here. So you've got the big red object here to the right. That's the LPR and DPR positions from before the war, before the start of the conflict, so 4 days ago. To be honest, I haven't seen any clear description of how far they've pushed west. So, Jen, do you have any idea how much further they might have?
Well, apparently, again, take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But it was the main body of the Azov infamous Nazi battalion that was holding this line, right?
Right. Okay.
And we have seen analysis from local Ukrainians from 2 days ago already of tactical maps of them, like the entire line being broken through at its strongest point of defense of crossfire, no less, because they were pincered from both sides by the Crimean direction that we were just seeing, and the DPR LPR direction, and apparently they were. This, I would say, it's more fairly reliable. Their main combat force was destroyed in 1 hour of combat.
Right. So actually, I wanted, let's do you know? I mean, I can search it while we chat about it, but how big was the Azov battalion? I know a lot of people don't talk about this, and there's not some certainty. How many men were in command, or how many men did they have?
I'm not so sure at this point. I'm not so sure. But what is clear is that the, I guess, soft infrastructure that's related to the Azov battalion is clearly still remaining. Why? Because there's footages coming out of in Kiev far back where like either their sympathizers or their their people are like training new conscripts to try to continue the fight. That was that footage came out yesterday. So that kind of supports the fact that their main body was wiped out and all that. Right. And this was the strip of land where we saw the famous video of the DPR, or was it LPR, one of the two T-72s.
Yes.
Upgraded variants with very nostalgic Soviet flag on its back, on the top of the tank.
Oh yes, the
charging across the road.
Yes,
that's where this comes from.
Okay, so that was down there. Okay, that explains why. So it wasn't actually a Russian tank; it was a DPR and LPR tank.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that explains that, because I don't know why like a professional Russian tank would be allowed to just fly the flag. Sure. It's not their flag. I mean, also you could have a blue on blue, as you would call it in NATO, because you're flying the wrong colors. Might make a
red on red.
Red on red, right? A red on red, rather. Okay. So in 2014, a report. So, excuse me, this is a Wikipedia article, but this is just something we have so far. Puts the Azotovs, but 2014 their strength was 300, but another one says 600, and then another one, and also another includes another unit which includes 900 in 2015. So back in 2014, when they were formed during the first iteration of this Ukrainian conflict back in Maidan, they were at 300. So, and then a year later in 2015 they were at 900. But so bear in mind, since then, they've received this status. So any neo-Nazi in the world, whether it's if you read the Wikipedia page, let's take that with a pinch of salt. I've got images and references to people that have been inspired by them. So you've got Greek neo-Nazis going to join them, ex-British servicemen joining them, all types of neo-Nazis that are.
Yeah, there was on Vice News in 2016. This one guy from Florida.
Right. So they have.
It's from Florida.
So so this is kind of turned into like a Spanish, like the Spanish brigades of the international brigades fighting in Spain.
Yeah, but just
this is the Nazi version of that, basically. What it's turned into. let's just see if we can see statistics on this here as a battalion. It says, yeah, so another estimate here is 2015, 1,000 men.
So that's actually closer to a battalion strength.
That would be a battalion, right? That's a battalion by Western NATO standards, right? A NATO battalion, 1,000 men. But I mean, I feel we could probably say that it's a bit larger than this because of its national draw, and of course it's quite a high-profile unit, and also the position. So bear in mind, the reason we're talking about that specific unit is that Azov was in Mariupol. So back in 2014, 2015, Azov took Mariupol back from Donbass forces. They managed to take it back. So that's where they were based. And this is
a nice comment, Comrade Cancer Box.
What's he said now?
My favorite Miami getaway.
Okay. Oh, the Nazi, right?
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So Okay. Anything else about Azov? I don't know if you want to mention this. So according to what you've read and according to what you found, it's been wiped out.
Yeah. As a military force.
Okay.
So does not mean that every single person in there has been medically pronounced dead. It just means that they took enough casualties to what command surrendered, and they're now POWs. That's what that means. And from what we've seen, Russia treats their POWs throughout this whole thing pretty well. It may be disinformation, but it's pretty consistent. You've seen like footages of Ukrainian liberals like being brave, yelling point blank at like Russian soldiers who did not hurt them at all. You try that shit with Americans in Afghanistan, I guarantee you get a full clip dumped into your body.
Oh yeah, at least a fist to the face or something. Yeah.
So it's pretty civilized, I guess, so far.
Right.
As far as war, especially total wars, are concerned. But anyways, let's move to the other sectors where.
Gotcha. Yeah, let's move along then. Okay, so just to conclude, then there is still heavy fighting in Mariupol. To be honest, it doesn't seem that Donbass forces and Russian forces have taken it yet, but the pincer movement is in play, and it's not looking good. I mean, they are going to be encircled.
To be fair, let me, if I may, is this a live update map?
This is live. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I mean, if you want something else, I'm not saying that this is conclusive. This is just one of many. There are many of these types of maps. So if you have something else, you can mention it.
Right. Well, anyway,
okay. So just on one more thing, there was apparently, according to U.S. officials, Marines, Russian Marines did land to the west of Mariupol. But I'll take that with a pinch of salt too. Yeah. Oh. Second.
Well, that would make somewhat sense. Yeah.
Sure. Let's move up then. So to let's go to the eastern side of the country. Before we move to Karkov, let's just see if there's anything of interest that you want to mention about here. I do want to mention in Dnipro. I know that in Dnipro there was footage of. Oh, sorry, we have to go back. The dam. So there was a dam built.
I was about to say that as well.
Yes, this over here. So there was a dam built right over here, which. Before 2014, Crimea used to get a lot of its fresh water from the Dnieper River, which would go along here. And then where you see that missile location, that blue thing is the canal that goes straight into Crimea. And that was a lot of their fresh water.
Yeah.
After it was annexed, Crimea was annexed, Ukraine built a dam which blocked the fresh water from the Dnieper going to Crimea. So a punishment to all of the people of Crimea for voting in their referendum and for the whole situation. So anyway, they punished everyone by cutting off their water. As of, I think, 2 days ago now, that dam, has been blown up. The Russian forces have blown that up, and now fresh water is returning to people of Crimea.
Talk about human rights.
It's pretty, sanctions are one thing, but literally cutting off the fresh water to,
that's like Palestine level.
This is, that's another thing we should probably mention is this conversation about sovereignty and stuff and outrage and war.
During this whole time, like the whole world stepped up its efforts in military violence because somebody else is catching all the attention.
Right.
That includes Israel and their bombardment on Palestinian people.
So I think that's a question that the West will have to awkwardly answer the next time there's something happens in Israel, Palestine, and we talk about the sovereignty of nations, about human rights, about stealing of land, about all of these things that they're talking about now.
Yeah,
it becomes quite awkward when Israel does it.
And if maybe Abby Martin should do another Empire Files documentary on that, and we'll make sure to promote it.
Yes, but, yeah. I do recommend watching that. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Called Israel Under Fire. Not Israel Under Fire. Palestine.
No,
Gaza Under Fire.
Gaza. Yeah.
Gaza Under Fire. which documents the killing of journalists, the shooting of journalists, the shooting of children by the Israeli forces on that border conflict they had in 2018. But for another time. So in Dnipro, so we've come back to the center of the sort of eastern central part of the country. In Dnipro, there was footage of please comment on this one, Jen, of the local people, civilians, women, everyone, making Molotov cocktails en masse. So, this is something that has been reported quite widely. But
I want to throw in a grain of salt here, which is a lot of the footage. I'm not saying that it's absolutely not happening.
Right.
But what I am saying is a lot of the footage to support this message was from back in 2014 Maidan. And let's mention that because that was when the pro-European, pro-NATO, so-called pro-democracy people in Maidan surrounded all the pro-Russian protesters into a building, blocked every entrance,
burned them
guarded every entrance, and then made Molotov cocktail and burned every single one alive.
Yeah, that's a famous.
There was like 20 to 40 killed, 200 plus injured. And then as the victims, the families of the victims tried to sue the European Court of Human Rights, it was deemed by the European courts to be suicide. The claim was, the court verdict was that the pro-Russian Ukrainian supporters locked themselves into a building and did this to themselves.
Yeah, that's insane.
So anyways.
I mean,
but if you mention that, you get called a Russian boss. So
sure. I mean, I do think that there are Ukrainian people arming themselves, and
of course, I don't deny that. Yeah,
I don't deny that. I think that's definitely happening. There is definitely national sentiment, and there is a willingness to fight and fight for what they see as their country. That's happening. It's undeniable.
Rifles alone are not going to cut it. I mean.
I do think that. So let's mention that story about the arming of the people, right? So this is not it's not in Dnipro. This has been happening in a number of cities, but I think the big footage is from Kiev. So
they're just handing it out without.
Well, I mean, handing it out.
Kind of background check.
Handing it out isn't even the correct word. The boxes are dropped off in the street, open.
Yeah.
So it's an open box. Multiple
this is like The Purge plus The Hunger Game. Plus, like some other Black Mirror episode.
No, it's absolutely wild that element of this is.
I just want to mention this. Like, it's 30,000 plus, like 34,000 in one city. Last time I checked. What is that? No, seriously, what is that?
Say that again. Sorry.
34,000 AKMs. SVDs and whichever squad automatic RKM, I think. RKM.
Yeah.
In total, they 34,000 plus. Some just get handed, not even handed out, like you said, just like here you go.
They drop the box. The famous. When people were complaining about the BLM protests, the sort of right-wing media would say, there were pallets of bricks being dropped off in the streets before the protests. So imagine, if you believe that, imagine that instead of pallets of bricks, people are dropping off pallets of AKs. Yeah.
I guess it's time to move to the slightly bigger picture now, which is like, okay, I'm just going to mention this once, like think of the security and public safety nightmare.
Right.
That is going to be for whatever is going to happen to that entire region.
So
afterwards, and think of how much work that the international police has to put in because somebody might have the bright idea that I am going to sell collect a few and I'll sell this to make some money on the black market.
So I
Who's
think
going to manage that? Certainly not going to be NATO.
so. The one voice on this is saying that Putin is trying to stop Ukraine becoming Western, right? And in this way, by handing out AKs willy-nilly, I mean, not only is it becoming Western, it's becoming like America. I mean, who knows? It's,
you know what?
You're going to turn a country Western, they just hand out a lot of AKs.
Wild claim, all right? Everybody, you heard it here. This is the Berlin Wall incident for the United States and the American Empire. This is this is the beginning of the dominoes. And so pretty soon we might actually see that in the United States. And good luck if you plan on still living here.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But as you said, Jen, also CGTN, the Chinese voice on this, I listened to an analyst yesterday, and he said handing out the arms like that, I mean, yes, national sentiment and national pride and all that stuff, sure, but openly handing out weapons, not even handing them out, just leaving weapons in the street for people to pick up. The long-term repercussions, you're now arming a population en masse. And also just for crime, organized crime in Europe in general, you now have a huge influx of assault weapons, military-grade assault rifles that are now going to be all over Ukraine, and then by extension will go into Poland, and whoever wants one will be able to get hold of one. So now you're creating a very big problem that will last for many years, because even in South Africa, I mean, we stopped the struggle whatnot in the early 90s. There are still caches of weapons from the struggle. They still have our AKs are still, you can buy them in the streets because of how many there were. So these things do not go away easily. When you hand out assault rifles to people, it is very difficult to get them all back. It takes years to get them back.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's Dnipro. So there was footage of that in Dnipro. But actually no fighting on here. So when you go up the Dnipro River, up the center of the country, there isn't actually any major incidents until you get to Kiev, which we'll cover in a moment. Okay, so let's move on to now the northern cities. So there's a couple small incursions here. So, for example, to this place called Drovichna, a small push there with what looks like air strikes, on some targets there. The big piece that is of interest here is obviously Karkov. So Karkov is the second largest city. So this place, when we reported on Friday, this place, there was already fighting. They were already saying that it was on the verge of falling. I would say, without having raised the flag, so to speak, on Maidan Square in Karkov, because there's also a Maidan Square in Karkov if you look closely here. Wait for it to look.
If it'll stop lagging.
I don't know why it's not to. Are they blocking it because they don't want me to see? I don't know. There's another Maidan Square, so I'm not confusing the two. But they haven't captured the center. Russia hasn't. But I've seen, it's gone now, but yesterday when I was on this map, there was footage of Russian troops doing advance to contact, as you say. So walking in a line with the vehicles behind them, waiting for the enemy to make contact to fire at them. And there was no significant, I mean, there was sporadic shooting here and there. But
it was not a systematic.
You're not seeing force.
At least not Stalingrad style. Where
Exactly. That was
giant guns to demolish buildings. There was none of that.
Well, I mean, there was no Ukrainian tank force to meet them. No trenches, no dug in. It was not a force.
Building. For sure. They didn't fortify in any meaningful way. Therefore.
Well, there just doesn't seem to be, at least on the outskirts. There's no. This is one thing has also been baffling a lot of. Even if you try and dig for it, to find where the main Ukrainian forces are, it's actually very difficult. I mean, I suppose that's credence to them, kudos to them, because it's not easy for people on the internet to find where their soldiers are, which means that it's difficult, I suppose, for the Russians too.
Unlike the U.S. Navy.
Right. But what I'm getting at is, it's fair to say that Karkov is fully surrounded and probably
from what we've seen, just citizen reports of Ukrainian people, local residents, Russian forces did advance pretty deep into the Kharkov city.
Mhm.
And so far, nothing too terrible happened. So that's what's going on there, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so Kiev, Kharkov. Sorry, then I'll show the map that you got. You've actually got a good map here for this.
Yeah.
1 second.
Though I just want to say
Yes.
on our friend's comment here, yeah, it's definitely at this point, after they've handed out such an insane quantity of guns, that this is far more like military operations at this stage is pretty much over. It is far more just like Ukrainian nationals fighting one another due to okay, there's like direct robberies of gas stations, and more so though due to differing political opinions. And so you can imagine, like, in a region like that where informal, low-intensity warfare has been taking place for so long, so people kind of come out, like, they wear camouflage clothing just, like, from day to day, even if you're not a part of the war. And then people proceed to fight their wars in their daily clothes, especially if you're talking about DPR, LPR front lines. There's been, footages of like very low intensity conflict type stuff. What I mean by that, well, rockets, recoilless rifles, right, the old kind, being used as indirect fire tools. So we know that the recoilless rifles fire like basically RPG warheads, shaped charge warheads.
Yeah.
Like the point is for the explosion to be concentrated into a point. It's not a blast weapon. So if you use it as indirect fire weapon, it just digs a hole in the ground, and it's not as effective as artillery. And what adds to that credence? Well, you see like ammunition dumps 5 meters, 15 feet away from the gun itself. That's not okay. So clearly they aren't expecting return fire. Right. Because if that were the case, that would be a disaster. The whole ammunition depot blows up. There would be a giant crater, and everyone would be dead. So it's just like this kind of low intensity stuff going on all the time. So you can imagine, like, if that is like a part of daily life for people, then now all of a sudden, even the non-combatants have an AK or, God forbid, a RPM in their hands. Like, what? Like, it makes the job very difficult to distinguish combatants, non-combatants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it is going to be a nightmare from that regard, not necessarily a purely military one.
Yeah. So before we move on to Kiev and the other city there, something that I want to mention is in terms of casualties, specifically vehicles. So, destroyed vehicles. You'll see there has been lots of footage of destroyed Russian vehicles. So CGTN, the Chinese English broadcaster, reported that Russia had lost at least 100 tanks, which is a significant number of.
Well, not all main battle tanks.
Well, they just said tanks, so we don't know what. Some of them might be armored personnel carriers. Some of them might be MTLB, APC sort of personnel carriers, not main battle tanks. But I have seen footage of images of destroyed T-72s of the variant that is being used by the main force. Right. So if you're looking at footage and you do want to try and discern what a convoy is, so it seems that the Russian forces have painted a white Z on their vehicles because there's such a similarity between Ukrainian equipment and Russian equipment. There's a lot of overlap. And a lot of stuff looks similar. So a T-80 and a T-72 and a T-90 and a T-64, these all look quite similar, particularly at a distance. But there are differences. But nonetheless,
for sure.
A white Z is the symbol that you've seen drawn on the Russian forces. However,
in regards to that, though, there has been, because of the case, like you mentioned, there has been cases of Ukrainian vehicles, the columns destroyed. Look at this. This is the Russians. Or the other way around as well.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So again, this is also where we see the information war is actually probably the starkest one. So you'll see footage of a civilian car, someone filming with their phone. They drive past a destroyed column, so 3 or 4 blown trucks.
But that's why, like I mentioned, the Chinese definition of information warfare last time. Because like unlike the Americans who try to compartmentalize everything, we just say that it's more than electronic and signal warfare.
It's everything.
We say that it is the act of the armed force to contend for information superiority in general. So clearly, the Russians and the Ukrainians agree with our definition, and this is what they have done. In our quote unquote our collectively shared internet space, and social media, and etc.
Right. Just the one thing I wanted to say there, sorry, Jen, is that what you're also seeing though is because of the information war, the psychological operations, whatever you want to call it, we know that the white Z is the symbol of Russian vehicles. So you'll see someone drive past, phone in the hand, filming a convoy, destroyed 3 or 4 trucks, destroyed 2 artillery guns, destroyed all that kind of stuff, and it'll be normal. You'll know, okay, that's Ukrainian vehicles because there's no white Z. So then that's reported as a Ukrainian casualty. So then you'll see footage where there is a white Z, but because of the fact there's an information war going on, I saw a particular one where you can see the vehicle is black, but the white Z is very clear and crisp, and it's on top of the black. So you've seen someone potentially an like a intelligence.
Went up with a piece of chalk.
Exactly. Or spray paint. It just goes. You have to remember that these things, that's very easy to happen. So if you're an intelligence operative and your job is to try and sow discord and sow put the idea in Russian troops' minds or in the Russian population's mind that they're losing lots of men and that what their government is telling them is not true, you just go and
they claim that the Russians lost around the 3,500 plus. Russia's claim is a bit more reasonable, around 300 plus, which is in line with the CGTN observation. So, make of that what we will, but we won't be able to find that stuff out for a long, long time. So I think, Richard, the choice is yours. Should we get into like all this information first, or should we finish the kind of geographical?
Let's finish the map. We can get to the discussion afterwards. So let's finish the map. I just want to play one quick footage here. So this is what appears to be. So this is I've talked in relation to what I was talking about. So don't worry, I've just checked this. There's no dead bodies. So I don't want to get in trouble for that. And also, I don't know who's watching this. So if you are watching with family and stuff, I don't want to cause any trouble in that sense. So you see that there, Jen? You got that?
Yes, I do.
This is that's the Z we're talking about on the vehicle there. I'm pretty sure this is a Russian vehicle because it's a modern.
Yeah, this is the VDV Typhoon fighting vehicle.
Right.
Oh, I see what you mean, though. Huh?
No. I'm not talking. That's not the example of the.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, but I mean,
Interesting.
So, I mean, it does look. I mean, I'm not going to. I do believe this.
So I do think this makes sense because the VDV are the ones that saw heavy fighting. We'll get into that with the Kiev situation right away.
Sure. But there you go. That's some of the stuff. So there are Russian vehicles that are being.
For sure.
This is definitely costing Russia, lives as well as material. Okay, so that's Karkov. The other city, Sumy, is also lots of fighting in Sumy. Not as intense as elsewhere, I think. It's probably the third biggest zone. So I'd say Kiev and Karkov would be 1 and 2. Sumy would probably 3rd, and there's another city,
our comrade here said Azov was forcing civilians to change dead Ukrainian soldier bodies to look like Russian soldiers.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about something that they would actually do.
That's definitely. There's also video of prisoners. So this has been. I've seen both sides report this. So there'll be Ukraine will show up a footage of a prisoner, a captured guy, and he's talking. And then the Russian media has shown like that guy alive a few minutes later, or
Russian necromancer,
as of battalion parade or something. Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah. So the other one, we haven't really got time to cover this one, is Chernihiv. But to be honest, also, again, not as intense as the other ones, but there's also fighting around this city at Chernihiv, which is in the north of the country. If just for interest's sake, the push that came from Belarus They went all round, so they seem to have just completely skipped this town here or the city here. So, Konotol.
That's very Soviet. Soviet doctrine really does say that if you run into cities, either drive past them or drive through them.
Right. So they've completely avoided this city here. They've just gone around it, and they've pushed, as you can see, towards what seems to be a very big focus here, which is Kiev.
Well, of course, there's
So just on Chernobyl, Chernobyl is being run by a joint. The
force of Ukrainian and Russian troops.
They've made a deal. So
to make sure that extremists of any kind don't just come in and like launch a rocket round at the sarcophagus. To leak a bunch of nuclear radiation and then kill everyone.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about Kiev then.
Oh gosh, this is huge. So this is quite incredible because from so many angles. So first of all, this is a very bold paratrooper move. So like Richard, I don't know like if they teach you like about like the history of the British Army and all that.
Yes.
Whilst you're still in service. But like this is like Market Garden, Operation Market Garden on steroids, but very successful essentially.
Right.
So what does that mean? Well, okay. The VDV, which is the earliest, in fact, paratrooper force in the world, formed during the 20s. Was always the most one of the most politically reliable elite infantry forces that were experimenting like this air deployed kind of thing ever since even before World War II. So this is the time where we see them in action, where they are just dropped by both helicopter and later on IL-76 transports and parachutes. That with we don't know exactly how many, though you can probably guess, into the middle of being surrounded, not the city of Kiev, because like what is like paradropping onto tall buildings? That's called suicide. Nobody does that. Paradropped outside of Kiev in the military airports, as we're seeing right here. It is one of the most incredible feats in human like modern military history ever since like World War II period. They held out as a force of infantry, sustaining losses, of course, but against Ukrainian forces for anywhere from 22 to 30 hours continuously after being assaulted by Ukrainian T-64 battle tanks, regular infantry, mechanized infantry, and also the Ukrainian SWAT team of the city of Kiev, which is supposed to, like SWAT team, you would think like they're better at urban warfare, and
they should be the best at urban warfare. Yeah, they should.
Right. And not only did they, so information warfare side of this, the Ukrainian state media announced 7 times, that they have eliminated this detachment of a VDV.
Right.
But they're still there, clearly. I mean, they sustained losses, as we saw in the footage. That vehicle was made in around 2016-ish, I believe, for the VDV with like thick bulletproof glass panels and armor and all that. But they not only held it off, they held off until reinforcements arrived. And of course, the Chechen Special Forces Battalion came in via helicopter assault from the east and also sustained minimal losses. Where once again, it's also on the eastern kind of forest wooded area on the east of Kiev, right?
Yeah.
To where the Ukrainian media once again claimed, we killed 350 Chechen special warfare operaters. Yeah. To which this like just devolves down to comedy because the core of comedy is tragedy. This whole war. Sure. Where the Chechen Russian leader and all their social media official, like state official media started saying that, hey, we are not dead. Right. Like these people that you claim are dead, like we're not actually dead. But then guess what? Their Instagram and Twitter account proceeds to get deleted from the face of the earth and got the Donald J. Trump treatment.
Sure.
So, yeah. So after all that is gone, we saw the crazy part that we've getting at, which is to handing out guns to anyone and everyone. And
Well,
so,
one
of
second,
course, like,
Jen. One second.
yeah.
I do want to make this before we move away from Hostomel Airport. So, if you are following it, actually, the other name of this airport is actually the Antonov Airport. I didn't know that. I knew that there's something very important about this airport, though. That this airport is where the Antonov.
Yeah, so this is huge.
The Antonov 225 is here. So the Antonov 225 is the biggest plane in the
The
world.
largest transport plane that humanity has ever made. There's only 2 of them in operation.
Right.
So yesterday, we were very glad that the Facebook page of the Antonov Corporation announced that their planes were not hurt during the operation.
So thankfully, that piece of history, the Antonov 225, which is
hello, that's James. Glad you're here.
Still working. Yeah, hello. It's still operational plane. Yeah. So thankfully, that has not been destroyed in the fighting.
There is a joke in China that I want to bring here, which is that the T-80UD has finally returned to her home of Karkov. Okay. And the Antonov 228 has finally embraced the bosoms of the motherland.
Okay.
Anyways.
Okay. Anyway, but yeah, so that's an important part of this about this airstrip is that it has the Antonov. It's called the Antonov Airport. Actually, that's the other name, being called Hostomel Airport as well as Antonov Airport. It has its own page already. It's called. There's now the Battle of Antonov Airport is now its own Wikipedia page.
Oh wow!
Going.
Oh
wow. Yeah,
I want to make sure this abundantly clear. We're covering this not to like make a lighthearted kind of joke out of the situation.
Right.
It's just
as we said at the beginning. This is war. This is absolute carnage, and I hope that this can stop as soon as possible. This is terrible.
Oh, on the topic of the Chernobyl region, as we were talking about before, I forgot to mention that luckily, thank God, that the news of the nuclear waste containment facilities being having a rupture and something leaked is thankfully fake news. So apparently, some local scientists detected a radiation spike. But then, luckily, according to the international kind of radiation monitoring system and satellites and all that, there was not a increase. There was not a spike in radiation levels in the region after like more than 24 hours of observation. And the international like atomic agency didn't say anything because like that's not a thing. So thank God. This was like by far, like I would say, the most like humane and like where like I guess you could say like where humanity actually kind of triumphed despite all this madness. Yeah. Because they didn't decide to duke it out in Chernobyl,
right?
And and where they the both militaries collectively decided that they will guard this facility together against crazy extremists, nationalists, Nazis who will try to do something. So that is that's where like the most honorable thing we have seen out of this whole
something balanced has come out of that. I've seen the footage too of the Ukrainian regiment that's protecting it, working with the Russian troops, which is good. This is good. So Chernobyl seems to be stable. There's no fighting around Chernobyl. I think everyone's reasonably understood that there's no need to make this any.
So,
but let's talk about Kiev. There's been fighting on the edges. So in sort of mainstream media, they'll talk about this Obolon district, which is the northwestern sort of corner of the city. So here, Obolon. So this is over here, right? They've been talking about that having, this fighting going on. So the Russian troops are here.
Well, yeah, of course. It's like I said, it is the continuous onslaught of Ukrainian forces against the VDV, which were in the airport. And it was where the most intense and direct fighting took place and all that.
Right.
And there was, of course, Russian air support flying over Kiev to like help out the VDV in that area all this time. And so, like, I would say, like, if there is one place throughout this entire war, which has now come to a halt because of the negotiation that's going to take place tomorrow, that is the place where actual, like, high intensity total, not total, but like high intensity conventional near peer warfare occurred. And so of course that's bad. That's gonna be very bad.
There has been,
and again, like I said, it's been 30 hours. Like they fought nonstop for 30 hours.
Right. I think I saw some footage on this site yesterday, which they've taken down, of a gun battle happening. What's peculiar about this, though, is that in Kiev, is that the lights have stayed on. So the power, even though there was a fire, an airstrike on the power station.
I need to mention this.
Yeah, one second, Jen. So the lights have stayed on, and there's been a gun battle where you can see the lights are on, but also just the scale. So huge gunfight happening, and this is where I think you can see some level of restraint, at least from the Russian side, because when you have the simple small arms fire exchange, even just platoon to platoon, because of how shooting is the rounds fly very far, and you're seeing it hit buildings, you're seeing it hit apartment buildings. So if the fighting does escalate in Kiev city proper, it will be a really terrible situation. That would be
for sure. I want to mention a few very important things that we've seen there.
Yeah.
One is this complete nonsense. Essentially, the VVV is fully kitted out with night vision, so they took advantage of that nighttime advantage, for sure. And what we saw was that in order to compensate for this disadvantage, we saw Ukrainian forces firing mortar and artillery flares, illumination rounds in the night to try to compensate for the disadvantage. But then, the Ukrainian residents in the city didn't know what that was and were super confused. And then the Ukrainian government coming out to say like, "Oh, this is our air defense system at work, and that is us shooting down Russian jets. No need to tank."
Yes, I know this one. Right? Yeah,
that is insane. First of all,
right. That was a very interesting piece of footage. So I haven't. Yeah. If that's been taken out, I have to try to dig for that one. But yes, if you did see that on the news, that was that big red ball slowly falling down.
Slowly.
Right. So they were claiming that was a downed aircraft. I saw Sky News reporting that as a downed aircraft. I mean, what aircraft falls in slow motion?
That slowly.
Like a solid piece of metal that falls, as if that's a parachute.
What it is actually a giant blob of flammable material with a parachute on.
It's a flare.
What it actually is.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So and then we saw essentially I want to mention this thing, like in footages of Russian special forces training, what we often saw is like accurate shooting under fire with like real partners, right? So what they've trained for is like a guy would poke out, to shoot live rounds at the trainee on their armored body armor, of course. But then you return fire with live rounds. But the guy that is shooting you has a balloon attached with a straw, like up here. You need to, whilst you're getting shot, okay, like with live munition from RPK, you need to shoot at the balloon, not just like return fire and kill the person. And that is something that they train on a routine basis.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes, yeah.
So, like, it is no surprise then they are able to practice this level of restraint even during this kind of high intensity firefight. So, impressive, I guess.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to wrap up now then for this. But to be honest, I think we've covered all the major sites of the fighting. Any final thoughts then, Jen? Before we
of course.
I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
Observations. The Russian forces, as far as a large-scale near-peer war goes, has practiced extreme amount of restraint, calmness, and precision. What I mean by that is that the Russian military, along with the Chinese, and the DPRK, has some of the highest ratio of mechanized automated artillery, GPS-guided artillery firepower per conventional foot soldier or tanks in the world. The amount of destruction, if they were actually out for like blood to cause casualties, with the loading of some rounds and the press of a few buttons, they can unleash absolute hell in the number of like thousands, even the tens of thousands, within minutes if they really wanted to. We didn't see that. They didn't even use like the famous or infamous, I guess, TOS or MLRS system, which is this very brutal, somewhat short range, but very extreme, ridiculous rocket where it's thermobaric, as in it burns the entire region,
Target area. Yeah.
sets the air on fire. A very powerful explosion, very powerful flames, and the per launcher has like 50. Yeah, that thing.
This thing. Yeah.
Every single one of these one launcher can suppress a whole company.
Well, it's probably a few hundred square meters, yeah, at least. Maybe.
Yeah. So during exercises, we've seen the Russian military like lining these things up in like the tens, if not the dozens, multiples of the dozens, just like unleashing hell on entire like towns.
Yeah.
But it's clear that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So in a sense, they haven't even unleashed not even. I would say like they only used 40% of their true firepower.
Yeah.
And then the ones that they did use is fairly precision guided. The VDV and Kiev, and along with the Chechen special forces, but more so the VDV in this case. That will go down in human military history as one of the greatest feats of achievement ever. And overall, like when Putin's like from a purely military angle, when Putin said that this is a mass special operation, he is not lying, because conventional war is you have a line and then you push, and then everything within the vicinity like you capture. Every city, every town, every ditch, is yours. But then special operations is where conventional forces is only a kind of a backdrop to create enough noise so that and distraction and activities and enough chaos so that the special forces can go in and capture the objective.
Right.
So that is actually exactly how this battle played out. It was precise. It was quick. It was over in 2 days. And the Ukrainian forces have largely, an overwhelming majority, has laid down arms now. Without much bloodshed. So typically when we think of special operations, we think of the American assassination of Osama bin Laden, the heads of ISIS, stuff like that, where like
the specific
special force is like a platoon, I think. And the supporting things is just like a few drones, a few artillery guns here and there, and then that may be it. But then like what we have here is like truly, like fitting to the name, mass special operations, which is quite incredible.
Right.
And I want to say that, as a last finishing off point, that from this event, two major things of concern happened.
Okay.
One is that from Trump to Biden to now this, the conventional rules of international relations has just went down the toilet with one push of the flush button. The entire academic subject, which is based on rules and quantifiability, right? Rules are the conventional rules ever since World War II that's been set up for international diplomacy. And quantifiability is, of course, the use of statistics to try to standardize it all. Went down the drain because the rules are broken.
Right.
So all of a sudden, like, I guarantee every single one that is listening right now, every single international relations department professors and the research team is like scrambling off their feet to try to figure out how to not like lose their whole department and lose their subject split.
Right.
Because what they used to study no longer has predictive power. On
this is a new chapter. Yeah, certainly is. It certainly is. I mean, so again, I think we're going to be talking about this on Friday again.
For a lot, And the second point.
Okay, quick one.
I want to mention is that we socialists really need to use the tools of scientific thinking and dialectical thinking and holistic, the parts and the whole philosophical analysis to truly figure out what is a socialist standard of acceptable violence. Because there is a paradox here. On the one hand, we clearly need to have morality. Warfare clearly is the kind of kind of blasphemy to human life, right? Because we are higher than animals. We shouldn't be conducting the same kind of activities that is done in like the ecosystem every single day. Because we are we have a sentience and all that. But on the other hand, we have the extreme. That's like the any kind of ruling class when it is in power will say, which is that anything that threatens its power is barbaric and is uncivilized and should be condemned. So on the one hand, we need revolution. So we need to break those rules.
Sure.
But on the other hand, we still are humanity, and we are supposed to be the highest stage of human civilization, not a regression of human civilization. So then where do we draw the line? How do we even come up with a standard of that, which will then proceed to be building into whatever new academic ground rules for the subject of international relations is going to be? Like, all that needs to be figured out and figured out soon, because or else. Quick comment from
no, quick comment. That's it.
Okay. I'll show it though.
We'll cover this on Friday.
Putin has allowed ambitionists around the world to see, hey, this is a good opportunity to do what we want. Nobody's going to pay attention.
We'll be back to discuss this on Friday and go again with more. Unless something really big comes up, we might do another one. But to be honest, I think we'll come with Friday/Thursday night, depending on where you are in the world. I think my final thoughts just, I hope that this can end sooner rather than later. Again, as we said,
hopefully it ends tomorrow.
Hopefully it ends tomorrow. Hopefully it ends in the next few hours. Again, the tragedy of two former Soviet peoples tearing each other apart because of geopolitics, because of NATO politics, because of all sorts of reasons. It should never really have come to this. It is a terrible, terrible thing that Russians and Ukrainians are fighting and are killing each other. And I hope that they can resolve this and come to something of a conclusion that is acceptable to both sides. But also I'm very glad that the Azov battalion has been destroyed. There's some points where my sympathy maybe doesn't go, and I think Azov battalion is not.
They committed war crimes.
But exactly. So anyway, so we'll finish on that one. Thank you very much, and we'll see you hopefully on Thursday/Friday.
Yes.
Hopefully not sooner. If we're seeing you sooner, that's bad.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Speak to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.